Hello, calling all hobos. Check in and say hi if you're out there. It's David. Night 16? Is it night 16 of Voodoo Days at La Casa Fabulosa? So Thursday night, April 23rd. Hey, Keith. Hey, Joanne. Welcome back, everyone. Say hi. Devin, Dorothy, hi. Let people know where you're from. Say hi and let us know what you're drinking tonight. I'm back to bourbon tonight. I've got Bullet. So cheers, everyone. And there's Lori Fields. So hope you all had a good day. Hi, Eileen and Bob and cousin Lisa and Cindy. Good you're back. VG of the Pink Palace. And there's Nancy. So yeah, say hi to people. Hey, Ashley. Good to see former students of mine on here. And Becky, and then Sylvia the Gargoyle just checked in. Beth is asking the total number of nights. This for Voodoo Day should be night 16. And then we had 10 of the ghost stories before. So there's Susan and Kathy and Kay and Glenda and Michelle. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you all had a good day. It's cold and rainy here in Louisville. I was a real hobo. I wasn't lazy all day. I had to teach, so I taught online classes. Hey, Amanda. But, yeah, I ate a lot. I wanted to take naps, but I didn't get any chance to take naps. I had to deal with end of semester stuff. So today officially was my last day of teaching. So then I've got finals I've got to deal with. So I got another week or so, but for the most part, today was my last day of teaching. And then technically, as of next week, I'm unemployed. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So I hope you're all hanging in there. Good to see you all back. But yeah, a lot of people have been asking if I had pictures of La Casa Fabulosa. And I mentioned last night, I did have a bunch of pictures, but I sent them off to this TV show, If These Walls Could Talk, and they lost them. I sent in 2 batches, and they ended up having a new director take over, and I lost all kinds of interesting pictures. So I called on friends from the gang, from the Thursday night / Tuesday night / Monday night dinner club to send in pictures, and so they sent in some pictures. So I'll show you a couple tonight for show and tell. But one thing I wanted to point out, remember I showed you the vase last night, or the vase that moved across the mantelpiece? Well, I was getting the library ready for story time tonight, and I heard it shake, and so I looked in the bottom of the vase, and there's even more. It's full. Well, there's like screwdrivers and Christmas hooks and candles, but all kinds of faux jewels. See? There's a pink one. There's an old penny. But yeah, it's full of dozens of these little faux jewels that were on the walls and everything. And there's Sean Stafford. So if you see Colonel Sean Stafford, say hi. He's the one helping us redo the website for Louisville Historic Tours, Hunley Media, and helping us get the word out. And by the way, in the vase, I found one of these. This is like from 20 years ago. It's an old, film cartridge. So I wonder what's on there. So I'm going to see if anyone still develops these things of film. And maybe there's pictures of the Casa Fabulosa in there. I have no idea what's on there. But this is like from 20 years ago. So we'll send it off and I'll see what's in it. But yeah, Laura sent some pictures. Wendy sent some pictures. Beth sent some pictures. So I'll show you a couple pictures. And then I'll show you some more tomorrow night. But this is in the front parlor of La Casa Fabulosa. We were getting ready for the holiday house tour that you heard about. You can see the walls were covered in gold anaglypta, and there were studs in there to recreate like a Corinthian leather pattern. And that's the 12-foot high Christmas tree that would always fall. That's Ramon there at the ladder, putting on the lights. And then we got, what else? There's Wendy and Skippy. This was like the night before the holiday house tour that you heard me read about. we were painting and putting up jewels. So there in the little vestibule at the front door, getting jewels and studs on the walls. And I don't know who that is. That might be Victor in the other room putting studs on the gold anaglypta. And then this was a Christmas dinner that year. So you can see the Venetian red on the dining room walls. And there's Gregory, and that's Miguel, Ramon's brother-in-law, and then there's Sylvia the gargoyle there drinking. Oh, that's my brother Travis in the blue. You can hardly see him. He's got a hat on. And this is one night we tended to do goofy things at our dinner. So we had these big gold charger plates. We like to hold them up to the backs of our heads and act like we had halos. And that's Bess in my lap. And see the full glasses of wine. She was probably drinking out of one of them. Wendy just lying on the floor. She's probably drunk, who knows. There's Wendy. And that's in the dining. No, that was in the foyer. And there's me with Fritz on my lap in the front parlor. See how nicely the gold anaglypta walls shine. And there's Ramon as we're working. See the ceiling? There's the ceiling in the parlor. You can see it was anaglypta treated with stain to look like leather, and then there were all these studs and these full jewels we put in to replicate a piece of something I found that was left over from what might have been the interior decorating of the first house. But you can see the anaglypta walls and the leather ceiling. It's not there anymore. The guy that redid the house and sold it to the Wades, he took all that out. It's a shame. Guess how many weeks it took to put all those jewels up on the ceiling and stuff. Took forever. There's Ramon and Wendy, Christmas time in the foyer. There's the fireplace. It's probably the night before the holiday house tour. Hey, Sheila Marie Wall. And there's Miguel, Ramon's brother-in-law, with Rocky and Bess in the butler's pantry. That's the sofa I would sit on when I was watching TV, and when the weird things would happen with the dogs, they'd go to the door. There's Amber in the corner, not looking too enthused. Oh, and by the way, in the butler's pantry, we had green walls, and the ceiling had gold anaglypta walls with pink and amber rhinestones in them. And then, I don't know what party. Beth, you guys remember what party this was? That's in the foyer. Skippy's dressed in a leisure suit. Was that the redneck party? Or we had a trailer trash party once, I think. I don't know. But that's Skippy in his white leisure suit. And I'll show you one more, then I'll show you the rest. Okay, there's Fritz. And remember, Fritz used to wear my cashmere sweater that Ramon washed in hot water, so it shrank down to his size. But that's me in the sofa in the butler's pantry. I'm trying to get a good angle there so you don't get the glare. Here's a good one with the fireplace mantle in the dining room. That's Beth and Ramon. There's one of the, like I said, I collect porcelain American Bellique, so that's one of my favorite American Bellique vases up there on the fireplace mantle. And that's usually when we had our weekly dinner parties. That's kind of what it was like. I'll share. Beth's found a menu from one of our dinner parties. Oh, this is me with Laura and Beth. See that? That's in the dining room as well. So, yeah, tomorrow night I'll show you some more pictures. But, here's another interesting artifact. This is the Louisville Slugger that was at my bedside. I had one, Ramon had mine. This is mine. Wendy made sure it was engraved with my name, so you can see that. And after she gave it to me, she said she should have had it engraved backwards so that when Ramon hit me over the head and left its imprint on my skull, you'd be able to read it better. Okay? All right. Well, so where'd we leave off last night? And this is all we have left in the book. So the plan is tonight we're actually going to finish the book. We will finish the last couple chapters, which are very short chapters. But there's an epilogue. So tomorrow night we'll read the epilogue. And the epilogue is like 15 pages. So the epilogue, I kind of tell what happens after we moved out of the house and how we moved out of the house and things like that. But yeah, tonight and tomorrow night, that's it. We're going to be finishing Voodoo Days at La Casa Fabulosa. So, like I said, I'll have to scrounge up new things to read, but I can probably get another week or two out of it, and then might have to go back and just reread things. I've been practicing the voices, so I could probably do Voodoo Days all over again with even better voices than the time before. But where did we leave off last night? Oh, we had started chapter 13 o'clock, and what happened? Oh, I was hearing the strange noises, and it turned out it was the screensaver on my computer. So Skippy had been calling, and I think where I left off was I realized that my grandmother clock had once again chimed 13 o'clock, and it never chimed 13 o'clock. Some clocks will do that, but this was a 1 to 12 clock. It chimed 13 o'clock. And as I came down the stairs and realized that after this night of weird noises, I said, one by one, I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck bristle and stand up. Okay, that's where we left off, right? So then I'm going to pick up from there. And this is just the last page or two of this chapter. Then we start a new chapter. And then we're almost done. So the cell phone began to vibrate in the pocket of my bathrobe. Skippy was calling again, so I flipped it open and cast one last suspicious glance in the direction of the now quiet clock before walking up the stairs. "What's going on? Why are you calling so late?" I said. "What are you still up for?" he answered. "I just drove by your place on the way back from the bar and I saw all the lights on in every room of your house. I almost stopped and came to the front door, but I decided to call instead." "Well," I said, "I thought I smelled smoke, so I was looking for a fire." I turned out the lights on the bottom floor and returned to the second floor, where I made my way down the long hallway to the little room at the back of the house. "Fire? Did you find anything?" "No, but it smelled like it was coming from that back bedroom on the second floor." I entered the room in question and inhaled deeply before I extinguished the light switch. All the odor had vanished. "I'm going crazy," I said. I walked up to the third floor and made sure the lights were off. "Figures," he said. "A lot of weird stuff seems to happen back there." I returned to my bedroom, crawled back into bed, and turned off the light. "Well, there was some weird stuff going on in the foyer as well," I said. "The clock started chiming and wouldn't stop. When I went down to check on it, the clock stopped, and I swear it just chimed 13 times. "I told you something is going on in that house," said Skippy. "I'm not that far away. You want me to turn around and come over?" "Hey, Laura." Chuckling, I lay back on my pillow, letting my eyes adjust to the darkness. "No, don't worry about it. I'm just getting myself worked up and I'm psyching myself out. Besides, if there's really anything here and it wants me to know, I'm sure it would let me know." At that very instant, there was a sharp click in the hallway outside the bedroom, and bright light flooded through the open door and into the bedroom. Someone had turned on a light. And that's where that chapter ends. So, yeah. I was all by myself. I turned off every single light, and all of a sudden, the light in the hallway came on. So what was it? Well, the next chapter is Candle. And welcome again, if you're just checking in. Say hi, let people know where you're from, let us know where you're drinking, what you're drinking. I'm drinking Bullet tonight. Cheers. But this, the second to the last, this is the second? Nope, this is the third to the last chapter, but these are really, really short chapters. It goes really fast. This chapter is called Candle. So Beth helped herself to chicken and dumplings. So, what did you do? It was the week after Derby weekend, and we all sat around the table in the dining room. I'd been feeling spooky all day, and the TV soundtrack from Twin Peaks was still playing in the parlor, the haunting strains of the music wafting across the foyer and into the dining room. I almost had a heart attack. That's what I did, I said. I passed around a basket of hot rolls. I held my breath for a bit, and then I finally got out of bed to see what it was. Skippy came over 5 minutes later, and nothing else happened. So, what was it? Wendy poured herself some wine and raised her eyebrows. The light in the linen closet, I said. It came on all by itself. You actually stayed in the house after the light came on all by itself? Laura sounded incredulous. Yeah. I wavered for a bit at the realization that everyone was staring at me, as if I had lost my mind. But we've had problems with that light before, I explained. I think there's a short in the wiring or something. And just so you know, across the hallway from the bedroom, there was a little linen closet. And the guy who redid the house and sold it to the Waits, he took it out. It was a beautiful linen closet. It had like built-in shelves with these big wooden drawers that you could store blankets and quilts in. And you could pull out, there were 2 steps you could pull out to reach up really high. And then there were cabinets, and they had this really intricate system of shelving with grooves and notches. You could adjust the shelves to any height you want. Well, and he took that all out. But there was just a single light that hung from the ceiling of that little linen closet, and it was a weird light. It's like sometimes, if you didn't turn it, you had to turn it. It was like the switch was loose or something. You had to turn it just a particular way. And so that it came on all by itself, it's not entirely unexplainable, but what's freaky is that it came on right when I said, well, if there's something here and it wants me to know, it'll let me know. That's what's freaky, okay? But like I said, all this weird stuff was happening. I was always trying to look for logical explanations. So for me, that was the logical explanation. It had come on by itself before. So maybe it was just coincidence that it came on by itself just then. Okay, so I tried to think of something smart to say. But Skippy said, you ever had any problems before with it coming on right at the instant you say, if there's anything spooky going on in the house, someone will give you a sign? And Skippy sat back in his chair and waited for an answer. I tried to think of something smart to say in response, but instead I shrugged my shoulders. I guess it was a coincidence, I said. You know what Kurt Vonnegut says about coincidence, don't you? Laura looked at me and waited for an answer, and all she got was a blank look. So she continued, he said coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. Is that so? I took a bite of food. I was going to take the opportunity to express my own thoughts on coincidence, but the loud buzz of the doorbell interrupted our conversation, and the dog started barking. We expecting anyone else? I asked, looking around the table. Did Crazy Kelly say he was going to come over? Not that I know of, said Ramon, returning from the kitchen with a fresh bowl of salad. Guess I'll see who it is. So I quickly scooted out of my chair and went to the door. On the front step, a grizzled old gentleman in a gray suit stood, and he looked out at the street. I muttered softly, feeling around in my pocket for some spare change in case he was a beggar. I opened the door. Can I help you? The old man turned to face me and he smiled, his face lighting up with kindness. Oh, hello, sir. He took off his hat and rumpled it between his hands. You have a magic house. You know that, don't you? Outside, a beat-up gray Chevy Impala, a 1960, I thought, puttered up to the curb and pulled over. A chubby woman with a beehive hairdo leaned over to the open passenger side window and peered up at the house, a pair of cat-eye glasses scrunched up at the end of her nose. Her steering wheel was covered in pink fur, and a pair of furry dice hung from the rearview mirror. The scene looked like something straight from a David Lynch movie, and I wondered if the Twin Peaks music had anything to do with it. I gave an inward groan. Oh, is that so? He reached out a hand, and I noticed he had his fingers crossed. Using his cross fingers, he made the sign of a cross before me. Thank you. Does that mean I have to do anything special, or can I just go on living here like I have been? The visitor didn't take note of my sarcasm, so he continued. Yes, she's a magic house. I said, well, hey, since she's a magic house, maybe she can start to pay some of her own bills. I thought about the depressingly large stack of bills on the library table in the foyer. The mortgage payment was considerable, and the chickens of all our restoration projects were coming home to roost. With a magic house come much responsibility. The man slowly cast a glance over his shoulder, and I followed his gaze to the wimpy hedge. Although almost a year had passed since the bushes had been planted, it didn't appear that they had grown an inch. You take care of the front yard, you take care of the backyard, you take care of the gardens inside the house, he said. Gardens inside the house? What was that supposed to mean? Other than a couple of Boston ferns, we didn't have much plant life in La Casa Fabulosa, something that had always been a bone of contention between me and Ramon. Ramon wanted plants in every single room. I didn't, citing the fact that they were messy and that, despite his best intentions, he was always killing them. The old man pointed past me and laughed. Magic. Every house have a magic garden, he said. All righty, then. I stepped back inside the house and got ready to shut the door, but then the man's dark eyes widened and the smile vanished. A finger rose and he pointed at me. You have seen, he said. You know this house have the magic. I was struck again by the man's unusual accent. I wondered if he wasn't the same old Cajun guy that my friend Jill had told me about. He did sound the same and he fit the description, but I couldn't be sure. Before I could interrogate him about his origins, he leaned in and whispered, The candle on the second floor. She come on all by herself. Then he turned around and shuffled down the walkway. At the sidewalk, he turned left and headed toward Oak Street. I went inside and closed the door. In the dining room, a swell of laughter rose from the table. Was that another panhandler? Asked Skippy, and I sat back down at the table. As usual, the dogs were hanging around in anticipation of stray crumbs and under-the-table treats, so I picked up Bess and put her on my lap. I don't think so. He didn't ask for anything at all, I said. He just stopped by to tell me this is a magic house. Oh, that's nice. Beth sliced into an apricot tart and started to pass pieces around. Another weirdo on the front porch. Was that all, or did he say anything else? Laura accepted dessert and spooned a dollop of whipped cream over it. Well, not much, but it got a bit spooky, actually, I said. He talked about gardens inside the house. And he said I knew what he was talking about. Candles coming on all by themselves on the second floor and stuff like that. Candles? Skippy grabbed a decanter of port and started filling glasses. How about lights in the linen closet coming on all by themselves? Does that count? I moaned. Oh no, I hadn't even thought of that. As the port made its way around the table, we considered the possibilities and discussed the most recent spate of eerie coincidences. Before long, we were reminiscing about the many oddballs and oddities that had made themselves known during our relatively short time in La Casa Fabulosa. When I wasn't paying attention, Bess lapped up the last of my port. She didn't even look sorry when I scolded her. Okay, so that's the end of that chapter. And then we have a very short 3-page chapter and a very short 3-page final chapter. So like I said, we're winding things down. So everyone, if you're just checking in, say hi. check in at La Casa Fabulosa, or Old Louisville, America's Most Haunted Neighborhood, or David's Magic Library. Let people know where you are. Invite people to come and join us. Share the video if you would afterwards. Cheers. And make sure you say hi and let people know where you're from. So, the next chapter is called Discovery. "Whew, that smell sure is strong today," said one of the workers as he walked through the back door into the kitchen a few days later. He wrinkled his nose and looked around the room. "Did you ever figure out where that burning smell is coming from?" When I responded it must be coming from the neighbor's house, he looked like he wanted to say something, but he bit his tongue. "Well, we'll start on the last room today, and we should be done in another day or two," said the older of the two men. They headed upstairs to do their work, and I left to run some errands. Outside, a hawk was circling in a brilliant, cloudless sky. When I went to get into my car, an enormous black snake shot out from underneath it and slithered across the alley, where it skirted to the side of the neighbor's carriage house and disappeared in a tall fringe of grass and wildflowers. When I returned later that afternoon, the strong coffee smell in the kitchen had faded, only to be replaced by the familiar smell of a hot iron and fresh laundry. Let me adjust this light a little, I think. Okay, yeah. Kind of looks hazy, doesn't it? No. Oh well. Well, if hazy and spooky's good, so I'm just trying to make it easy to read. No, it wasn't a black mamba, thank goodness. We don't have black mambas in Kentucky, do we? All right, this maybe will be a little better. Okay. When I returned later that afternoon, the strong smell of coffee in the kitchen had faded, only to be replaced by the familiar smell of a hot iron and fresh laundry. I scratched my head and looked around, then I walked up into the next room. Upstairs, I could hear a loud scraping noise, the irritating sound of wood against wood. It appeared to come from the linen closet on the second floor. And from the loud footsteps running back and forth, it sounded like the workers had decided to concentrate on that room instead of the small room at the back of the house. I couldn't figure out exactly what they were doing. However, it sounded like they were pulling out the large wooden drawers of for the sheets and the pillows and then pushing them back in again. In and out, in and out. I was about to run up the stairs and get an explanation when the back door opened and in walked the two workers. For a second, I stared at them with stupefaction, but then I remembered the time I thought Ramon was up in the linen closet, but he wasn't. I bolted upstairs to the wooden closet, already knowing what I would find. Although the cupboard doors remained open and the large storage bins and drawers were pulled out all the way, no sound could be heard except for the two workmen as they trudged up the steps behind me. "Let me guess," said the older gentleman as he reached the top of the back stairs. "You heard all kinds of racket in this here linen closet, like someone was running around and pulling out those big wooden bins there." Before I had a chance to continue, the younger man cut me off. "Man, this house is haunted. That's all there is to it. We kept hearing strange noises the whole time we were here, and it felt like someone was watching us, too." He looked up at the other man. "Yep, we took our lunch break an hour ago because we couldn't stand it anymore, and we don't want to be here alone. This here door kept slamming shut, too." He pointed at a door outside the linen closet that divided the long hallway on the second floor into two sections of equal length when it was closed. Even though I had heard it slam shut many times, I always assumed it had been the result of the breeze from an opened window. "And come take a look at this," he said, motioning for me to follow to the small room at the back of the house. "Remember that iron smell you were always complaining about? The burnt wood and all that?" He opened the door and pointed inside. The room had been stripped of its outdated carpeting, exposing the beautiful century-old heart of pine flooring underneath. The man stopped in front of the mantel and indicated a spot on the floor. "See that? We've sanded and sanded, but we can't get rid of it. Too deep in the wood, and it's there to stay. While the wood had lost much of its original luster due to years of neglect and buildup, I could still easily make out the dark shape he pointed to. It was about 5 inches long and triangular, but the two longest sides were slightly rounded. With a slight shudder, I realized I was staring at a burn mark on the floor, one left behind by an old-fashioned flat iron. A long time ago, someone in that room had been heating the old iron in the fireplace, and the ironer must have inadvertently set it out on the floor, where it charred a permanent mark in the wood. The wheels started running in my head. I ran back to the dividing door in the middle of the hallway, and as I stood and stared, things slowly started to make sense. I closed the door, and I realized it divided the front half of the house from the back half. The front half included the original ladies' day room we now use as a study, the former nursery, another bedroom, all of which had interconnecting doors and doors that opened out onto the front part of the hall. From that hall, one could mount the carved oak stairs to the rooms on the third floor, or take them down to the public rooms of the house, the parlor, the foyer, the dining room, and the small bathroom under the stairs. I finally realized what the small room at the end of the hallway on the second floor had been used for. And I explained all this when friends arrived for our weekly dinner a couple of days later. Opening the door in the second floor hallway, I ushered them through to the back of the house, and then I closed the door again. We stood in the dark rear corridor and studied the layout in silence. Doors granted entry to the large linen closet, several smaller closets, a bathroom and a water closet, and the small bedroom at the very back of the house. The plain back stairs led down one flight to a small coat room and the cellar stairs, and then into the butler's pantry and the kitchen at the back of the residence. For the most part, all the odd activities at La Casa Fabulosa had centered around the back part of the house. The little room on the second floor, the linen closet, the kitchen, the butler's pantry, the coat room. "Oh, I see," said Laura. "The back part would have been where the servants worked and had access. That's where they cooked and cleaned and did laundry." "And that room?" said Tad, pointing to the little room at the end of the hall. Our heads slowly turned to the small room where at one time a hot flat iron had charred its mark on the floor. That must have been the maid's bedroom. "That would make sense," said Beth. "So do you really think Lucy could have been a former servant here?" We all crowded into the small room and gathered in front of the hearth. The workers had completed their project the day before, and now the floor gleamed with wood stain and a coat of polyurethane. Without a word, we all stared at the burn mark and mentally debated the possibilities. We continued the conversation over drinks downstairs. Laura had volunteered for cooking detail, and the stories and discussion continued as we passed around rolls fresh from the oven and a large tray of grilled fennel with a shallot and burbot vinaigrette. After that, we sat for hours and enjoyed pot roast, corn pudding, and scalloped potatoes. Before dessert, I set out a tray of fresh fruit and cheese. Dessert that night consisted of homemade pawpaw ice cream and freshly baked butter cookies, two of the last recipes I had been developing for my Kentucky-themed cookbook. By the time the dishes had been cleared away, we all knew what had to be done. Carrying lighted candles and walking from room to room in the servants' area of the house, we all followed Wendy as she reassured Lucy that she was free to enjoy the house as she wanted. No one wanted to bother her, Wendy explained, and we understood that, ever the diligent servant, she was keeping watch over her part of the house. After the impromptu blessing, we returned to the front parlor, where we drank coffee, passed around bourbon, and talked till the wee hours of the morning. From that night forward, there was never any more unexplained noises or would-be paranormal events at La Casa Fabulosa. Yeah, David Stevens, fancy schmancy people food, okay? So, and then we just have one tiny little chapter called Voodoo Finale. And that officially ends the book, but like I said, there is a epilogue. So tomorrow night we will read the epilogue and tie up some loose ends, and that is the end of La Casa Fabulosa. All right, let's take another drink every time we start a new chapter. Another drink. Thanks again, everyone, for checking in. And tell people where you're from. Say hi. Check in at La Casa Fabulosa, David's Magic Library, Old Louisville, America's most haunted neighborhood. I don't think we have any hobos tonight, but we're working on hobo merchandise. So thanks for being interested in t-shirts and things. They're coming. Hang in there. We got some out on our LouisvilleHistoricTours.com website, but there's more in the works. Just hang in there. And like I said, we're all looking forward to our hobo reunion in Central Park. Hopefully in a month or 2 or 3, depends what happens in the future. But it's fun to see everyone bantering back and forth, and it's heartwarming to see these new friendships made. We're all checking in every night to help each other out. Like I said, normally I'd be out on the streets of old Louisville, taking people around, telling these stories in person. But since I can't do that, I get online and share the stories this way. And it's the little thing I can do to help people. And like I said, you think I'm helping you, but you're all helping me get through another day. I look forward, even though it's become a job for me, I look forward to every night at 9 o'clock getting on Facebook Live and seeing you all and telling you stories and seeing your fun comments and meeting new friends and seeing old friends. So what's David Stevens saying? A new drinking game. Every time David Domine was in Ghost and I'll take a shot. Well, you'd all be drunk by now. Like I said, I'm not saying I don't believe in ghosts, but I never saw one. So when I see a ghost, I will definitely believe in them. But up until now, I've only experienced strange things. So I am a firm believer in the unexplained, but I've never seen a ghost myself, so I'm not going to say I believe in them until I see one. So if there's a ghost here, let me know. Like I said, I'd love to see a ghost myself, but I think the more you want to see a ghost, the less likely the chance of it happening really is. All right, so we're going to wind up tonight by reading a short 3-page chapter called Voodoo Finale, and then tomorrow night tune in because that's the epilogue. That's what happens after we moved out the house, what I found out, some interesting things, and just life and how I came to write the memoir and find out more about old Louisville. So tonight and tomorrow night, that's it for Voodoo Days, people. So thanks for being troopers and hanging in. If you're like an every night attendee, this will be like 17 nights we did Voodoo Days at La Casa Fabulosa. You should get like a gold star just for that all by itself. Okay? So, nope, I jumped ahead to the epilogue. We don't want that yet. So, Voodoo Finale. So silvery, dark storm clouds had swept in over the neighborhood, and the rumble of distant thunder hinted at a spring shower. I zipped my windbreaker all the way up, and I left through the front door. As I went down the front walk, a blue and black sparrow zoomed by, its wing tilted perpendicular to the ground. The gang was coming over that night, and we were making Cuban food for Victor, who had moved out a couple of months before he came back for frequent visits. Since empanadas, yuca, black beans and rice, and roast pork were on the menu, I decided to make mojitos as our cocktail. Although I had plenty of mint, I didn't have any limes, so I decided to walk to the Crow Ghetto. I hoped it would be a cookie-free day. I grabbed a bag of limes from the produce section, and I tried to think if I needed anything else. I was out of honey, so I thought, well, get a jar. And then I remembered that we had used up all the candles the other night during Wendy's spur-of-the-moment consecration of the house. Marty's asking if he took the nasty kitty with him. No, but I'll update you on that in the epilogue, okay? So then I remembered that we had used up all the candles the other night during Wendy's spur-of-the-moment consecration of the house. Oh, and by the way, one of the candles in here, in the moving vase, was one of the candles used for that little ceremony. See that one? Yep. So look at all these ancient artifacts. That proves everything I say is true. I have artifacts to back it up, so you can't, I got jewels stuck between my fingers too. So everything I say is true because there are artifacts to back it up. Okay. So, so I was out of honey, so I went to get a jar, and then I remembered that we had used up all the candles the other night during Wendy's spur-of-the-moment consecration of the house. So I found a dozen white candles, and I walked to the checkout line with the fewest shoppers, because it was the Crow Ghetto, remember how that was. And as I pulled out my wallet to get my bank card ready, I froze. There, right in front of me, stood Josephine. She wore a flouncy green skirt with a white pleasant girl blouse, and a metallic-looking turban had been wound around her head so that not a single strand of hair could be seen. Holding my breath, I kept still, and I took a step back so she wouldn't see me. When it came time to move my cart forward in the line, I tried to do it as quietly as possible so as not to arouse her ire. But a squeaky wheel gave me away. She turned to look at me, but I averted my gaze, trying to look invisible as my fingers danced over the assortment of candy bars. When I looked back, she gave me a brief, unrecognizing once-over, and then she returned her attention to the front. Josephine dangled a shopping basket at her side, while an old man in front of her argued with the cashier about whether or not a coupon was still valid. After a minute or two, I still hadn't advanced, and I tried to make myself relax a bit until my eyes beheld the contents of Josephine's shopping basket. Inside were only 3 items: a bag of limes, a jar of honey, and several tapered candles, white. My eyes widened to twice their normal size. Quickly, I grabbed a baby Ruth, and I added it to my purchases, thinking that if I disturbed the balance of items in our shopping baskets, I might be able to halt the emergence of another voodoo day. But Josephine stopped swaying and shifted her weight. She pivoted a bit to the left and stared at the candy selection in front of her. Don't do it, I thought to myself. Don't do it, don't do it. But slowly, she reached down, grabbed a baby Ruth Bar, and tossed it into her basket. No way, I said out loud, loud enough that she turned around for a second to see who I was talking to. Realizing that the fates had presented me with a very rare opportunity, I decided then and there to introduce myself. If Josephine was a real voodoo lady, I definitely wanted her on my good side. Maybe she'd like to come over and meet the Thursday night dinner club. Cautiously, I inched the cart forward. Psst, Josephine, I said, leaning over the rail of my cart. But she didn't hear me, and she continued looking straight ahead. Hey, Josephine, I tried again. Seeing how nobody was responding to my greeting, the woman behind me cast a quick, puzzled glance around and then cautiously moved her cart ahead. The man with the coupon had finally started to gather up his groceries, and he was leaving. Hey, Josephine, I repeated in a louder tone, and I even stretched out an arm to the side and waved to get her attention. The head under the turban spun around, and the woman looked at me, a confused expression on her face. Huh? She said. I put on my best smile. I just wanted to say hi, Josephine, I said, extending my hand, and I prepared to make introductions. But the woman just narrowed her eyes and looked around suspiciously. You talking to me? I just wanted to introduce myself, I said. My name's David, and I live over on 3rd Street. Who you calling Josephine? She jammed the hand not carrying the basket down onto her hip. My name's Marcia. Her head swiveled to the right, and she pursed her lips while fixing me with a skeptical look. My heart was pounding in my throat. Oh, sorry, I said. You're not Josephine? Nuh-uh. She swiveled her head in the other direction and mustered another disdainful look. No voodoo? I said in a faint-hearted voice. Voodoo? She crowed, vigorously shaking her head. Crazy weirdo! As she proceeded to lay her purchases on the conveyor belt, she continued to grumble. I don't even know why I come to this here store. Nothing but a bunch of freaks and crack whores on up in here, in this Crow Ghetto. Sorry, I said. I felt myself shrink by inches as the others in line looked at me like I was an oddball. I had you mixed up with someone else, I guess. Throwing her money down on at the cashier, Josephine quickly gathered up her bag and prepared to leave. But at the last minute, she turned to give me one last chewing out, but she stopped dead in her tracks when she spied the contents of my cart. Her mouth snapped shut and her eyes widened as she studied the bag of limes, the jar of honey, the candles, and the baby Ruth Bar. Then she took several slow steps backwards while giving me a worried look. As she stared at me, it seemed that the faintest glimmer of recognition registered in her eyes, but then she shook her head as if trying to rid herself of an unpleasant thought, and she bolted out the door. The cashier rang up my order as if nothing had happened. Outside in the parking lot, I opened the baby Ruth and looked up. Storm clouds roiled the sky, but it hadn't started to rain yet. Chuckling at my goofiness, I set out for home, and I ate the candy bar as I walked the first block. Had I really spent more than a year pursuing a non-existent voodoo woman? Or had I simply confused the Marshall lady with someone else, and was Josephine really out there yet? All of a sudden, I realized that it didn't matter, and I picked up my pace, and I went home in hopes of beating the rain. As I crossed Oak Street, I looked down to the corner of 4th and Crazy, and I noticed a woman pushing a shopping cart piled high with what appeared to be sticks and other things. She had reddish-brown hair and wore a long black coat, but I refused to entertain the notion that she might be the stick witch or any other elusive neighborhood character. Approaching 1228 South 3rd Street, I looked up, and I saw the 3 bats darting to and fro over my front yard. It seemed that they were playing an aerial version of tag, and I could almost hear them calling back and forth to each other. They fluttered out over the street, and then flew up to the gable, and they disappeared. As I turned and made my way up the walkway to the front door of La Casa Fabulosa, the skies opened up, and a downpour washed over the colorful facade. A deafening thunderclap rumbled high overhead, and my enchanted neighborhood prepared for a soaking. That is the end of the story, except for the epilogue tomorrow night. So tune in tomorrow night, and I'll tie up a couple loose ends and tell you how I came to write the book and a couple interesting things I discovered about the house. And that's it. One more night of La Casa Fabulosa. So we have heard all the chapters. There's just a half hour, 35-minute epilogue, and we'll do that tomorrow night. So thanks for tuning in, people. It's getting sad. I hope I don't get emotional tomorrow night. I'm not going to drink a lot of bourbon, because I drink a lot of bourbon, I get emotional. So tomorrow night we gotta finish this. But like I said, I've got a couple other things in the works, so I can keep you occupied for another week or so. So I don't want it to be ending either, Laura, but all good things must come to an end. So tune in tomorrow night for the epilogue, and we'll have a lot of good laughs, and we'll make plans for our reunion, and I'll tell you more about what's in the future. But tomorrow night, Voodoo Days ends, but Voodoo Days are all around us. So we all have Voodoo Days. We all have weird things happen. You just need to kind of pay attention to the weird things in life and the beautiful things in life. So just because the memoir ends tomorrow night doesn't mean that us getting together and hanging out is going to end. So we're going to finish. We're going to go out with a bang tomorrow night. So get out your good bourbon, bring some friends. Let's make this a real shindig. And then Saturday night, we'll start something new. And we'll still talk about old Louisville and the weirdos and the voodoo days and the hobos and stuff. So it's not like we're leaving old Louisville behind. So Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Good seeing you all. Hope you had a good Thursday. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night for the finale of Voodoo Days at La Casa Fabulosa. All right? So take care, and take care of each other. Stay healthy, and love you all. And we will see you tomorrow night. Thank you.